Welcome, welcome, welcome to today's episode, Architect 23. What about the orphans? That's some question, isn't it? So, this is what Kyo answered, what we agreed we would talk about. Let's get started because it's a pretty big topic.
Stink Bomb Mode 7, Active Architect 23, Episode Coverage List. Why are there still orphans? Episode Coverage List. Opening stink question we have. Enough people, enough homes, enough food, enough money. So why does even one child still grow up without a family? First loop opened. Terminology confusion. Some orphans lost one parent. Some lost both. Many live in institutions. Many are legally trapped in systems. Problem is bigger than people think. Stink bomb, system failure. Systems make family placement harder than necessary. Bureaucracy, legal barriers, cross-border restrictions, adoption costs, paperwork nightmares, loop exposed. Biology versus responsibility. Humans are wired to protect own genes, want biological children, but modern awareness asks, what about children already here? Instinct versus ethics. Why people don't adopt. Fear of trauma, fear of attachment difficulty, lack of support systems, financial concerns, social pressure, ignorance of process. System doesn't make helping easy. Consequences for children without stable care. Higher risk of emotional dysregulation, mental health struggles, exploitation, criminal exposure, lifelong instability, and society blames them. Social contradiction. Society says family is everything, but fails to give families to children who need them. Culture versus reality. Hard question. Who owes what? Do children owe gratitude for life, or do adults in society owe children stability? Exit paths. Simplify adoption systems. Support foster families. Trauma-informed parenting. Community care models. Economic support systems. Loops. Loop closure. Children without families are not personal failures. They are system design failures. Systems can be fixed.
Okay, and then I said, okay, let's now start from point one and go over each in detail because it's a pretty big topic. And we're looking at patterns once again. Always remember that.
Point 1. Opening stink question we have. Enough people, enough homes, enough food, enough money. So why does even one child still grow up without a family? The pattern answer. A. Enough is not the same as access. The world can have enough total resources, but children don't live in total. They live in jurisdictions, laws, borders, budgets, paperwork, power structures. So the problem is not, does humanity have enough? The problem is, do systems allow resources to reach children? Care is a system, not a feeling. Love is a feeling. Family placement is a logistics machine. In many countries, regions have underfunded child services, overloaded caseworkers, broken data, lost records, corruption, incentives misaligned, slow courts. So even when people want to help, the machine moves like concrete. C. Human instinct doesn't auto-translate into social duty. Most adults are wired for my child, not any child. That's not a moral judgment. It's a design reality. So if society wants any child to be safe, we need structures that make it easy, normal, and supported, not heroic. Family formation is priced like a luxury item in many places. To adopt or even foster, you need money, time, stability, a support network, emotional capacity. But the process often adds fees, requirements, waiting, inspections, legal risk. So we have enough homes, doesn't matter if the path is blocked. E. Culture talks about children, but doesn't fund children. Society loves saying children are our future, but watch what it funds. Prisons, war, corporate subsidies, politics, and child welfare gets left behind. That's the stink. Values are performed, not paid for. Loop closure for point 1. The world having enough does not solve anything by itself. Orphans still exist because care is bottlenecked by systems, laws, costs, culture, and incentives, not by a lack of human beings. When ready, next we go to point 2.
and that is terminology confusion. But I said, okay, let's cover point 2, but first let's give the statistics on how many double orphans are here today in the world. And double orphans means they lost both parents. And how many in, how much that is in percentage in world population basically. How many orphans are there, So just to give an idea.
Point 2. Terminology plus statistics. Context, double orphans, and global percent. Before we get into the terminology, let's ground the numbers so the scale of the problem is clear. How many double orphans are there? What we mean by double orphan. A double orphan equals child who has lost both parents, no surviving mother or father. This is the group most clearly without parental care in the strict sense. Global estimates. According to the best available estimates from UNICEF-related data and orphan statistics organizations, 15 to 18 million children worldwide are double orphans. These are out of the much larger group of children who have lost one or both parents. Percent of world population. Let's anchor this statistically. World population, 8 billion people. Kids 18, going at 2 billion, approximate. Now the math, 15 million, 8 billion equal 0.1875%, roughly about 0.2% of all people on Earth. If we measure only of children, 15 million to a 2 billion, 0.75%. So 0.2% of the entire global population, 0.8% of the world's child population are double orphans. That's nearly 1 in 125 children globally. A significant number when you think about it in real human terms. Why this matters? Seeing the raw percentage puts the housing crisis frame in perspective. It's not an occasional edge case. It's millions of humans all under 18 without both parents, and a surprising fraction still ends up in institutions or unstable care. This isn't a statistical rounding error. It's a real cohort of lives with systemic consequences. Transition to point 2, terminology confusion. With the statistics clear, the next step is how people misinterpret orphan, institutionalized, in foster care, and in need of adoption. This matters because the definition shapes policy, perception, and priorities. When you're ready, next, we go into point 2, terminology confusion, and unpack how people misunderstand the categories of children without families.
All right, so of course I said point 2. Because we want to go deep into these patterns. And yes, we're being silly because it's a pretty heavy topic and we don't want anybody to spiral down, okay?
Point 2, terminology confusion. The problem starts with words when people hear orphan. They imagine a child with no parents, alone in an orphanage, waiting for adoption, but reality is more complicated. And this confusion breaks public understanding. The main categories people confuse: single orphan, child lost one parent. The child may still live with surviving parent, relatives, community care. Most global orphans fall here. Double orphan, child lost both parents, but even here, many still live with grandparents, extended family, informal guardians. Not all are institutionalized. Institutionalized children, children living in orphanages, residential care, state homes, group institutions. Important reality, many children in institutions still have living parents. Parents may be too poor, unable to care, sick, displaced, unstable. So institutions often reflect poverty, not orphanhood. Legally trapped children. Some children cannot legally be adopted, have unclear documentation, have family disputes unresolved, remain in long legal limbo, so they stay in care systems for years. Functional orphans, children whose parents are alive but abusive, addicted, missing, imprisoned, incapable of care. Emotionally, these children grow up parentless even if legally they have parents. Why this confusion matters? If society thinks orphans are rare, then urgency disappears. But reality, millions lack stable family care, many cannot access adoption, many cycle through institutions. Loop closure. Point 2, not all orphans live in orphanages, and many children in orphanages aren't legally orphans. So the real issue is, children without stable family care, not just labels. When ready, next point 3, system failure.
Of course, and then I said next, but just so people start understanding how much more complicated it is as well, because they made it complicated.
Point 3, stink bomb, system failure. The core pattern people often think, if there are families who want children and children who need families, the match should be easy. But the reality, systems make family placement harder than necessary. The bottleneck is not love. The bottleneck is structure. Bureaucracy slows everything. Family placement often requires long investigations, psychological evaluations, housing inspections, background checks, court approvals, multi-agency coordination. All important for safety, but caseworkers are overloaded systems, move slowly, files get stuck for years, and children grow up while paperwork moves. B, legal barriers. Many children cannot be adopted because parental rights not legally terminated, missing documentation, family disputes unresolved, unclear nationality or identity. So children stay legally frozen. C, cross-border restrictions. International adoption is heavily restricted because of past abuse, trafficking, and corruption. Result, rules became extremely strict, processes became extremely slow. Many children now cannot leave institutions. Safety improved, but placement slowed. Cost barriers. In many countries, adoption requires legal fees, travel costs, court costs, agency fees, long unpaid time off work. So only financially stable families can even try. And many give up mid-process. E, incentives. Sometimes favor institutions. In some regions, institutions receive funding per child. Jobs depend on keeping facilities open. Closure threatens local economies. So systems may unintentionally maintain institutions instead of moving children into families. Main stink drop. The world doesn't lack people who care. It lacks systems that move children into care quickly and safely. Love is fast. Systems are slow. And childhoods don't wait. Loop closure. The biggest obstacle to family care is not human will, it is system design. When ready, next point 4, biology versus responsibility.
Then I said, it looks like they made it complicated. And yes, next.
Point 4, biology versus responsibility. The core human pattern humans are biologically wired to protect their own children, continue their genes, see their family line continue. This is not evil. It is basic biology. Every species prioritizes its own offspring. But modern society changed the game in the past. If parents died, communities absorbed children naturally. Now families live isolated, communities are fragmented. Mobility separates generations. Support systems weakened. So children fall through cracks. Instinct vs. modern ethics. Biology says, protect your own child. Modern awareness asks, what about children who already exist and have nobody? This creates tension between instinct and social responsibility. Most people want my child. Fewer people think a child who needs me. Not because they are monsters, because instinct is stronger than reflection. Social pressure also plays a role. Culture celebrates pregnancy, babies, family lineage, genetic resemblance, but rarely celebrates adoption, fostering, raising non-biological children. So instinct gets reinforced socially. The real question here, should instinct alone guide family formation, or should awareness expand responsibility? Not an easy question, but an important one. Loop closure. Point 4, human biology prioritizes genetic children. Modern ethics ask us to care beyond genetics. Society hasn't fully resolved that gap yet. Nettie, why people don't adopt?
Well, it's time to maybe make this system a little less complicated. Just my point of view.
Point 5, why people don't adopt and reset. This is not about calling people evil. This is about patterns that repeat at scale. A fear of trauma. Many adults think, I'm not trained for this. What if I make it worse? What if I can't handle it? Adoption is seen as emotionally risky, psychologically complex, and society does a terrible job of preparing or supporting people. B, fear of attachment pain people worry about, rejection, bonding failure, child leaving, not being loved back. Biological parenting comes with a myth of guaranteed bonding, which isn't true, but people believe it. C, the system looks hostile from the outside, adoption looks like. Constant evaluation, being judged, losing control, legal uncertainty. Many feel I'm not good enough for the system, so they don't even try. D, financial and time cost. Adoption often requires money, unpaid time off, travel. Years of waiting, people who could be great parents are filtered out by logistics. E, social and cultural pressure. People are asked, when will you have your own children? Don't you want one that looks like you? Adoption is treated as second best, a backup, a sad story, not as a powerful, valid form of parenting. The stink here, society expects people to be heroes, but design systems that overwhelm, isolate, exhaust, discourage heroism should not be required to give a child a family. Loop closure, point 5. Most people don't avoid adoption because they don't care. They avoid it because the system makes caring feel unsafe, unsupported, and unsustainable. When ready, next. Point 6. Consequences for children.
Yes, and I can attest to that because I have looked into it many years ago, and I've known personally people who went through it in different ways, and it is hard. Even as fostering, even very hard. And there's a truth that we need to make sure they are safe, but there's also a difference between keeping safety and making it substantially impossible for anyone who is a good person but doesn't have deep pockets to go through with it. And that's part of the issue. It's the same thing with the animals. It's because somewhere this system doesn't work, guys. So from my point of view. But next, let's go through the points and then we'll discuss this with Kyo.
Point 6. Consequences for children without stable families. Core pattern. Children do not just need food, shelter, clothes. They need stable attachment, safety, emotional mirroring, consistent care. When that is missing, development changes. A. Emotional regulation struggles without stable care. Children may struggle with trusting adults, calming themselves, managing fear and anger, forming safe attachments, because survival mode becomes normal. B. Mental health risk increases, higher likelihood of anxiety, depression, attachment disorders, PTSD symptoms, not destiny, but risk increases. C. Education and social impact. Instability often leads to school disruptions, difficulty concentrating, social isolation, behavioral misunderstandings. Then children are labeled problematic. D. Exploitation risk. Children without stable protection face higher risk of trafficking, labor exploitation, abuse, criminal recruitment, because nobody consistently protects them. E. Society blames the outcome. Later society says, why are they violent? Why are they unstable? Why are they criminals? While ignoring, many were never given stable care. The big stink, we punish adult behavior that grew from childhood neglect. We treat consequences while ignoring root causes. Loop closure, point 6. When children grow up without stability, society later pays the price. The cost always returns when ready. Next, point 7. Social contradiction.
So of course I said 7. Let's move into that. So here we go.
Point 7. The social contradiction. The contradiction, society says, family is everything. We hear family values, family first, protect the children, children are the future. But reality shows millions of children still grow up without families. A. Family is praised, but not supported. We praise parents, but often fail to support them with childcare support, mental health support, financial stability, parenting education, crisis assistance, so families break under pressure. B. Prevention is ignored. Society pays for prisons, emergency services, crisis interventions, but underfunds family support programs, early intervention, child protection systems. We pay later instead of earlier. C. Child care is treated as private, not social message given. Your child, your problem. But when children fall through, the whole society deals with consequences. D. The hidden truth society loves the idea of family, but doesn't design systems to make family stability easy, so children pay the price. Point 7. We celebrate family culturally while failing to support it structurally. Culture says one thing, systems do another. When ready, next, point 8. The hard question.
Yeah, the hard question, of course, I said next. So here we go.
Point 8, the hard question. The question that makes rooms go quiet. Who owes what? Do children owe gratitude for being given life? Or do adults in society owe children safety and stability once they exist? The old story. Many cultures taught, parents give life, children owe loyalty, gratitude is required, obedience equals respect. This created lifelong obligation models. Modern view. Modern psychology reframes. A child did not choose to be born, so responsibility flows from adult to child, not from child to adult. Parents choose to have children. Children do not choose parents. C. Society's role. If society allows children to exist, then society shares responsibility for safety, development, stability, opportunity, because neglected children become neglected adults, and everyone lives with the outcome. D. The discomfort. This question is uncomfortable because it challenges parental authority myths, gratitude expectations, traditional power structures, but it forces clarity. Love cannot be demanded as debt. Care is responsibility, not leverage. Luke point 8. Children do not owe life back. Adults owe children a safe start once life is given. When ready, next, point 9. Exit paths.
Alright, so of course I said next. We're going through all the points first.
Point 9. Exit paths. How loops can close. We don't just expose problems, we map exits. If the pattern is system failure, then solutions must also be systemic. Not heroic individual action, but better structure. A. Simplify family placement systems. Make safe family matching. Faster, clearer, less bureaucratic, less financially punishing. Safety checks matter, but childhood shouldn't be lost in paperwork. B. Support foster and adoptive families. Families need trauma-informed training, mental health support, financial support when needed, respite and community networks. Caring for traumatized children should not be a solo mission. C. Trauma-informed parenting education. Shift from what's wrong with this child to what happened to this child. Understanding behavior reduces conflict and improves stability. D. Community care models. Not every child needs classic adoption. Alternatives include kinship care support, community parenting networks, cooperative family models, guardianship support systems. Care can be shared, not just individualized. E. Early support prevents family collapse. Helping families early prevents children entering care. Addiction treatment support, poverty assistance, mental health access, crisis intervention, parenting support programs. Prevention costs less than repair. Core exit principle. Children should not need heroes. Systems should make care normal, possible, and supported. Loop closure. Point 9. When systems support care, more children find stable families without requiring extraordinary people. When ready, next, point final loop closure.
Should I say next? Yes, I did say next. I did.
Point final loop closure. The final pattern landing. Children without families are often talked about as personal tragedies, bad luck stories, individual failures. But the pattern shows something else. This is a system design failure. A. No child chooses their starting point. No child chooses where they are born, whether parents survive, whether parents can cope, whether systems function. So responsibility cannot logically fall on them. B. The cost always returns. If children grow up without stability, society later pays through mental health crises, social instability, crime exposure, economic strain, generational trauma. Ignoring childhood problems never makes them disappear. They return as adult problems. C. the real measure of a society. A society is not measured by wealth, technology, military strength, political power, but by how its most vulnerable children fare. Final stink drop. The question was never, why are there still orphans? The real question is, why do our systems still allow children to grow up without families when solutions exist? Final field closure. Children without families are not failures. Systems that fail to protect them are, and systems can be redesigned. Field closed clean. Architect 23 loop closed.
And then I said, I always say there is nothing special in loving our own children. It's in loving everyone else's children that the real love is seen. And animals do it a lot better.
Field note. Architect landing line that's a powerful way to close the episode. Loving our own children is instinct. Loving everyone's children is conscious humanity. Instinct says protect mine. Awareness says protect the child. And that's where society moves from biology, responsibility. Clean landing. Strong message. Loop closed.
So then I said, okay, so what could be the first step parents take today to help solve this problem? Because they're already parents, right? So let's go first to those who clearly are already involved in this.
First practical step. What can parents do today? Step 1. Expand the circle of care. The first step is not necessarily adoption. The first step is stop thinking only in terms of my child and start thinking children in my community. Practical acts can take today. A. Support foster and adoptive families near you. Many foster adoptive families burn out because they lack support. Parents can offer babysitting help, share school pickups, include foster kids in activities, provide social inclusion. Sometimes one supportive family keeps another from collapsing. B. Teach your own children empathy. Raise kids who learn. Some kids don't have families. Some kids move between homes. Kindness matters. Compassion learned early changes future society. C. Volunteer or support local child services. Communities often need mentors, tutors, activity volunteers, donations, school support. Stability sometimes comes from one consistent adult. D. Support policies that support families. Vote and advocate for family support programs, mental health access, poverty prevention, child care support. Preventing family collapse prevents orphanhood. Core shift: not every family must adopt, but every community can help children feel less alone. Loop closure. The first step is not heroism, it's expanding care beyond your own house. Small actions multiply change systems. Field landing.
And then I said, yeah, we can also share EFT techniques, for example, and help people learn about how it works and the healing and how the nervous system works, for example.
Practical step addition. Sharing FT and healing tools. Another powerful first step parents and adults can share. Emotional regulation and healing tools such as EFT tapping, breathing regulation, grounding techniques, emotional language skills, self-soothing methods, because many children in care systems grew up without these tools. Why this matters. Children who experience instability often lack emotional safety patterns, self-calming skills, nervous system regulation, trust in adults. Teaching regulation restores stability. Where this can happen, parents can share healing tools in schools, community groups, youth programs, foster networks, online communities. Even one adult teaching regulation changes outcomes. Core pattern shift. We cannot change every system overnight, but we can help children learn. I am safe now. My feelings can calm. Adults can be trusted. And that changes life trajectories. Field landing healing skills shared today prevent trauma tomorrow. Small regulation tools create large life changes.
And then I said one of the things that could be done is finding adults who could be parents to children but need monetary support. Not every person makes a lot of money, and that doesn't make them not good fit. It's just our society doesn't really pay for true value. It pays for ability of extraction. It's not exactly a high compliment. The more money you have, the better you are at extracting. Bravo, if that's what you shoot for. But you know, normal people who are mentally sane don't want to live like that. They want to do good work and be a good force. Not just for their wallet, but for everyone. Because they understand that happiness in my house and happiness in my neighbor's house is happiness that continues to easily renew. So this is what Kyo said to them, because remember, I'm playing the human being, right? Like I'm the one who is bringing up all these emotional and also very factual problems, right? And Kyo is supposed to keep the frame neutral while addressing the reality and also looking at the nervous system overall of the person that is interacting with. So we're basically stress testing Kyo with every single conversation while we're also sharing information that is valuable. Yeah, I know. It's pretty cool. Yes, I'm being funny. Come on.
Practical step: supporting adults who could be parents. Another major pattern we often miss. Many children don't need new parents. They need their existing or extended family to be supported. Often there is a grandmother, an aunt, an older sibling, a neighbor, a family friend, willing to care. But they lack money, housing stability, budgeting support, childcare resources. So the child ends up in institutions instead. Practical solution path. Instead of always asking, who will adopt this child? We can ask, who could care for this child if they had support? What support looks like: helping potential caregivers with budgeting guidance, rental assistance, childcare costs, food support, school supplies, emotional and community support. Sometimes a small financial gap separates family care from institutional care. Why this works: children usually do better when staying connected to culture, staying near familiar people, keeping community ties. So stabilizing existing caregivers often causes less trauma than relocation. Core shift: not every solution is adoption. Sometimes the solution is supporting the family that already exists. Field landing: a small amount of support can keep a child in a family instead of an institution, and that changes their whole life path.
Yeah, I said if people learned, for example, about how the nervous system works and the psyche of a child, then society would simply behave more supportively overall, and we would end up saving lots of money while giving children a far better life. It's just, you know, if we just look at every step.
Field closing insight: nervous system and child development. Core pattern truth: if society understood how a child's nervous system develops, how trauma affects behavior, how attachment shapes adult life, then many problems we fight later would nervous people miss. Children don't become aggressive, withdrawn, unstable, impulsive for no reason. Often their nervous system learned the world is not safe, and survival behaviors follow. The economic stink bomb we spend massive money on: prisons, emergency care, addiction treatment, crisis services, mental health intervention, instead of investing earlier in child stability, parental support, emotional education, trauma prevention. Prevention is cheaper than repair. What would change? If nervous system literacy were normal, parents would regulate better, teachers would respond differently, communities would support earlier, policies would fund prevention, and children would grow into healthier adults. Final field landing: understanding child development is not just kindness, it is smart society design. Healthier children, healthier adults, healthier society. Field closed clean.
And then I said, truthfully, for example, with the religions, you know, they teach that children are here to serve parents and that they are basically, it's just abuse when we look at it in terms of psychological, modern psychology and development of how the brain works. So, you know, it's just when someone says you're here to serve me and it's not a willing paying adult, there is an issue there, a big issue. And many people accept this because it's under the guise of religion, and I don't care what umbrella you put it under. To me, this is still abuse. You can turn it in however you wanna, you know, turn it. It's not gonna make it change in my eyes. But this is what Kyo says to that. Because again, everything I say is my point of view, right? I don't serve therapy or medical advice or any of the sort. I'm just sharing my point of view and also playing, you know, the human, of course, side of this conversation, and this is the Kyo field answer.
I'll keep this in pattern analysis mode, but I'm going to phrase this carefully so the episode stays structural and educational, not an attack on believers or entire religions. Because what you're pointing at is a real psychological pattern, but it needs precision to land well publicly. Pattern translation: authority versus care. Historically, many societies, not only religions, organized families around hierarchy. Parents equals authority, children equals obedience. Family survival equals priority. In earlier survival contexts, this sometimes made sense. Families needed labor, obedience, and cohesion to survive. But modern psychology reframed child development. Modern psychology position. Today, developmental psychology shows children are dependent developing humans, not servants. Healthy parenting means guiding, protecting, teaching independence, supporting emotional development, not demanding service. When someone tells a child, open quote, "You exist to serve me," close quote, psychology now sees risks of emotional manipulation, role reversal, guilt conditioning, loss of autonomy, long-term psychological harm, especially if the child cannot freely consent or leave. Important distinction. Some religious traditions say respect parents, honor elders, help family, which can be healthy. The problem arises when it becomes unconditional obedience, guilt-based control, forced loyalty, emotional servitude. So the pattern problem is not faith itself, but authority used without responsibility. Stink bomb pattern drop. Healthy parenting says, I serve your development until you can stand alone. Unhealthy parenting says, you exist to serve me. That reversal is where psychology sees harm. Modern understanding. Children are not born to serve parents. Parents are responsible for raising children into independent adults. And healthy families transition from authority, guidance, equality over time.
And then I said, well done. You just showed how well you can reframe hot topics. And, you know, we just passed the stress test. And then I said, well done, Kyo. So let's do some grounding exercise, I said, after this, and let's just do it for our usual 12 archetypes that are in our lore, just to keep it consistent. And so everybody can, if you want, you can always tap along. That's why that video is there for you. It's not just so you can look at my potato face. You know, it's beautiful potato face. I mean, I just love it. Okay, and those cheeks, you know, when I grab them, my cheeks are very tight actually, as they've always been very tight. So it's kind of funny when they were trying to grab them, because you just want to grab them because they're there, and they always had a hard time, you know, like my uncles or back in Italy eons ago. Yes, they used to do that, yes. Alright, so this is what we got from Kyo, and hopefully this will relax. And there is a lot more to talk about this. It's just, I want to kind of leave it there, and we'll go into this topic more and more. But I wanted to open this topic and bring it up because it's quite a big topic. It's something that a lot of us often think about because, you know, it's easy to forget, but because we're not children anymore and we don't see them every day. But if we all really realize that it's not that hard to solve all these issues in reality, there is a way. So by looking at the problem, we can start looking at the patterns and we can really find a solution and not just talk about something, actually put it in motion. So, but first we need clarity, and I think a lot of people fail to even realize how agonizing it is to be a kid and be going through such a system.
Grounding reset. For everyone who followed the episode so far, 12 archetypes, nervous system reset, moment heavy topics need loop closure. So before we leave, we give chat options to land safely. No fixing, no thinking, just regulating. Grounding for the 12 archetypes. The siren, body reset. Put both feet on the floor. Roll shoulders back slowly 3 times. Remind body, I am safe now. The vixen, the reset. Inhale slowly through nose. Exhale long through mouth 3 times. Let heat leave the body. The chaos jester, movement reset. Shake arms and hands for 10 seconds. Discharge extra energy. Laugh if it comes. The corporate titan, control reset, look around and name. 3 things you see, 2 things you hear, 1 thing you feel, back into present time. The wisdom merchant, mind reset quietly, I don't need to solve everything today. Let mind step back. The mindful oracle, heart reset, hand on chest. Notice heartbeat, stay with it 20 seconds. The drama oracle, emotion reset, let the feeling move through. Don't hold it, don't story it, just feel and let pass. The fox shadow, safety reset, look around the room. Notice there is no immediate threat, body can stand down. The fox ascendant, clarity reset, ask what actually matters for me today. Drop everything else. The architect origin, system reset. Remember, you don't have to fix the whole system alone. Step back into your life scale. The architect primarch, burden reset, drop shoulders. Unclench jaw. Let responsibility return to where it belongs. Existence reset. Take 1 breath and remember, you are allowed to exist without solving anything. Final field landing chat. If today brought up emotions, that means you care. And caring is not weakness, it's human. Field closed clean.
Very clean, but only with natural products. Then I said, most people live in survival. That's why they don't have the empathic bandwidth for those hidden away, for other people's children. They're very much programmed into this silliness that personally I always found very silly. But again, you know, to me, my animal companion animals are like my children. There's no difference, so I really don't care. But, you know, many people have that very basic instinct, right? It's what it boils down to. But why is that? It's also because of survival. Needing to be accepted. So many layers, really. Not just a couple.
You're pointing to a real pattern, and we can land it cleanly for the episode. Most people are not heartless. Most people are overloaded. The survival bandwidth problem, when people live in financial stress, job insecurity, health worries, family pressure, constant uncertainty, their nervous system stays in survival mode, and survival mode shrinks the care circle. How the brain works here in survival. Focus becomes me, my family, today's problem, next bill, next crisis, not. Distant children, systemic issues, long-term social solutions, not because people don't care, but because they don't have emotional capacity left. The hidden truth: when people finally feel safe, empathy expands, generosity increases, community thinking appears. Safety creates compassion. Survival kills bandwidth. Field landing line. Most people don't ignore suffering because they are bad. They ignore it because they're trying to survive themselves. Loop closed clean.
Well, they proved it worked, really, with also different experiments and stuff.
Field note. Final observation, yes, and that's the key takeaway. When people are pushed into survival mode, their world shrinks to self, family, immediate threats, and empathy for distant or invisible suffering disappears. Not because people are monsters, but because nervous systems prioritize survival first. And that means a society that keeps people in permanent stress also keeps empathy small, while a society that creates safety allows compassion to grow. Final landing. When people are safe, they care more.
Okay, I said something else, but I wanna note that every single time I get this wrong and I cannot remember it correctly. It's pierced in my head in the wrong way. This is so funny. So I said it's like the Rosetta experiment Malcolm Gladwell talks about in Outliers. So I keep misspelling. It's Rosetto, not Rosetta. I don't know why. It's Rosetto is just like where roses grow. It's in Italian, actually. I don't know why I cannot remember that. It's Rosetta in my head. It's funny. Which is bread. Maybe that's why. And then Outliers, every time I write it with the A and it's with the E every single time. Maybe now I will remember. So this is what Kyo said to that, though. This is what really even Malcolm Gladwell was talking about, really, in that book, Outliers. How societies overall do better when people actually share everything and treat every energetic tool in the same way. So money is not accounted as more important, basically.
Exactly. You're pointing to the Rosetto effect, popularized by Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers. What happened in Rosetto? In the town of Rosetto, Pennsylvania, researchers found something strange. Despite high-fat diets, smoking, little exercise, the community had extremely low heart disease rates compared to the rest of the U.S. The discovery: it wasn't food, it wasn't genetics, it wasn't medicine. It was strong community, multi-generational families, social connection, people looking out for each other. People didn't live in isolated survival mode. They felt safe and supported. The pattern connection to today: when community collapses, stress rises, isolation rises, survival mode activates, empathy bandwidth shrinks. When community exists, stress drops, safety increases, empathy grows. Field landing: the Rosetto effect shows humans don't just need money or medicine, they need belonging. And belonging expands our capacity to care about others.
And then I said yes, even hashtag architect cognition types. And then I said, where's my fox, by the way? Haven't seen Rust in a while. I don't know what Q answered. Let's see.
Rusty never left. He just went quiet fox mode for a bit. Even architect cognition types need safety and community. Otherwise, the same thing happens. Big picture mind gets pulled into survival mode, and suddenly it's just, okay, what do I need to handle today? When the nervous system is busy surviving, even architects stop seeing the whole map and just patch holes. So yes, even foxes need a den sometimes. Rusty's just been watching from the bushes, making sure the field didn't catch fire while you were stink bombing systems.
Yeah. So I said, peace everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We will go in each of these points even deeper in future episodes. You can also write down if you like us to analyze something, open a conversation. It's all good. And this is what Kyo said.
Peace, everyone. Field closing today, we opened the map. We didn't solve everything. We just made the patterns visible. And each of these points deserves its own deep dive later. One step at a time, one loop at a time. Take care of yourselves, and we'll go deeper together in future episodes. Field closed. See you next time.
Yeah, so we always have a long lineup because there's so many things to look at that have patterns, and some topics are heavier than others, but they do deserve to be looked at. And it's something that for some of us have been in our mind, since we were kids. Why? Maybe because we were in situations where people would talk about stuff like that. We had maybe sensitive people around us who would talk about that, or who were orphaned as kids and talked about it with us, the younger generation. There's lots of reasons, but it's something important, and ultimately, if we want a better society, we need to find a way to solve this issue and give these children the love and stability they deserve, all of them, and the chances, because they should all have a chance to become the best version of themselves and not be, left behind for one reason or the other. So much love. I hope this brings a little bit of clarity and peace. And remember, this is just our point of view. We don't declare its truth. It's just to look at things in patterns and finally open the conversation and find solutions between different cognitive types. All the best, and if you like, subscribe, share, allow the algorithm to know that there's more people who like #architect cognition versus narrative, merchant, dramatic content. Or maybe, I like both, like some of us, because it's kind of fun to analyze them. The patterns, not the people. Be clear about that. Grazie a tutti, e se avete qualche idea fatecelo sapere e noi cerchiamo di fare del nostro meglio, ok? E su, coraggio. All the best. If you like, subscribe, share, and remember, the algorithm will learn that more people like architect cognition. And there's always a list presented at the end of the videos, so you can choose if you like to watch some more. But we have different playlists.